Hey, good Thursday morning. Michael Clark here with BAM Weather with your latest long-range forecast update. We're going to talk about the continued risk of cold and snow, too, the pattern that just continues to look favorable for winter, if you will. And we're going to continue to talk about that here this morning. Share it with a friend. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't so you get the latest updates. Guys, we look here at radar this morning. We've got some snow showers around the area here across the northeast, some accumulations of snow perhaps up there in the northeast. Otherwise, it's pretty quiet across the majority of the country. And it's not as cold today for now until the next Arctic air mass barrels on down in here. This is a look at temperatures from normal month to date. All right, you can see here for the first 15 days of the month, obviously we've started pretty well below average in terms of the cold. I'll move this over here so you can see this. The scale. The dark, getting into the darker greens is 10 to 7 degrees, 7 to 10 degrees below the average. A large chunk of the country has been very cold, and we're only going to continue to add to that here over the next week. Precipitation, I'll tell you, it's been pretty dry for the most part. I mean, we've had a couple of big winter systems for sure, but it doesn't equate to the liquid amount of precipitation needed. And in Arctic air masses like this is a pretty common look, pretty typical outcome here in that regard, So the analogs that we're looking at here with similar extreme cases of cold yield the same results as it pertains to precipitation here. Looking at the gas-weighted heating degree day forecast, the demand that the forecast is this will be the coldest January since 2000, right behind 2014. It'll be just a tick behind it. Going back before that, you got to go to 1994, and then before that, you've got to go to 1988. So we're in rare territory for the heating degree day demand of the cold and how much people are running the heat here, running the furnace. It's going to continue to run in a big way, especially next week. In fact, one thing I did want to pull up for you all, and we'll go to our friends here at Pivotal Weather, go to their website, and we'll pull on the blend of models here because I just want to give you an idea of how cold it's really going to be. And this is a manageable, responsible way to look at this cold. Here it comes in, it warms up ahead of this Friday, by the way. Get a mild day here. But look at this front here. Waking up by Sunday morning, Arctic air is just plunging into the country. It feels like freezing for about 90% of the country Sunday morning. And then watch it in here Monday morning. I mean, this is 18 degrees below zero. Feel like temperature Indy, minus 23 Chicago, minus 31 at Minneapolis. Just really, really cold. And that's a feels like temperature down there in northern Florida of 18 degrees, by the way. That's Monday morning. Here's Tuesday morning. The cold spreads into the Northeast, into New England. And you could make the case that 75% of the country will feel as if it is below zero for wind chill here next Tuesday morning. It's just crazy cold here. Out to Wednesday morning, it continues. Thursday morning of next week, it's still really cold. So this is no slouch of a shot of colder Arctic air coming in by any means here. Okay, this is a look here. I want to look at the pattern as it pertains to just in general here going forward as it relates to the storminess of the weather pattern. There's a couple of key things that I want to make sure we point out. I think a bigger winter storm is on the charts here. I want to keep your attention right around this area here, right around that 23rd to the 25th time frame. You look at the teleconnections, they can tell us a lot about what the storm's probably going to do, what kind of storm it could probably be in that regard. You can see the PNA is falling, the Western Pacific is falling, the Western Pacific Oscillation, the EPO as well is coming down, but we're stuck with a positive Arctic Oscillation and a positive NAO. It means it's probably not going to be any type of big nor'easter, at least we don't believe so. It's probably more of an interior snow threat, but this is another storm system similar to the one last week in many cases. All right, the declining angular momentum as well will continue to indicate a stormy pattern as it supports a gradient in the southeast. Now this is some technical charts here, but I'll show you kind of what we're looking at here. This is the latest GFS computer model off of the Tropical Tidbits website, tropicaltidbits.com. Great site for weather model analysis as well. You can see the front here this weekend, if I trend it over the last several runs, very consistent in the forecast and what it's got going on. We're going to get some rainfall and then some snow, followed by that here in the Ohio Valley Northeast, rain down to the southeast. That's when the Arctic air really comes spilling down in here. Watch this sneaky system here, though. If you want some snow prior to the 23rd to the 25th up the East Coast, this area of low pressure goes right up the coast. The Arctic air mass, it goes in line with the Arctic air mass. This is a nice swath of snow that's possible for the Northeast here Sunday into Monday, and I don't see any reason why that won't pan out at this point. So some decent snow accumulations there. The big Arctic high follows in Wednesday into Thursday. Again, there's the big cold we talked about. This is the 12Z GFS. Go to the 0Z last night, talk about that, because it's got the indication of another storm system, a bigger one. Again, on that 23rd, 24th, 25th-ish time frame, very similar to the one that we experienced last week. And it's a big storm. It's a big storm in that time. Again, you can see this particular setup would probably not favor a coastal storm solution, but an interior northeast storm. Very similar area, very similar track. Now, there's a lot to sift through with this. There's a lot of things that could change. It's far out. The signal supports a bigger storm there for sure. And you can see the 0Z GFS. It had our little weekend Sunday night, Monday clipper a little bit further east. You note the newer runs a little bit further west. And again, I think that west trend there in the northeast, I don't think that's gonna stop. I don't feel bad about that forecast. You could look here, if I trend this, look at the trend. 1, 2, 3, 4. We need to watch that. Nice interior snow, northeast snow, or coastal northeast snow coming with this particular set of the run here from the latest GFS. In fact, you just for the fun of it, while we're on the video, and see what it does there with the swath of snow. It puts down a decent swath. I'll even take you there to the northeast, and for viewing pleasure, you can see it's a 6-inch swath of snow up there. So something to keep in mind. I want to talk about the cold. The polar vortex gets a lot of buzz. And a lot of people talk as if they really understand and know all about the polar vortex, and I don't think a lot of people truly understand it. And I think its orientation, its placement, and its the state of which level you're looking at, all this stuff matters to the pattern. And I don't think it gets the credit it should get. Despite MJO stuff and other background noise, I just think that if the vortex is in a favorable position, whether if it's the stratosphere or the troposphere, stratosphere is higher, troposphere is lower, you're going to get cold. You're going to get storm systems to pull cold down with it, and that's what's happening. That's how we've been so ahead of the game here with this type of stuff. Look at the next wave of the vortex. I want to illustrate something very simple for you. Here it comes. There's the vortex right there. You can see the lobe of it wants to get all the way down. Watch that nose all the way down into almost North Florida. Gets into Louisiana. That's the tropospheric polar vortex next Tuesday. Okay? At the same time, look at the stratospheric polar vortex and where the coldest air is situated. It's on the other side of the hemisphere. Right? It's on the other side of the planet. But if you go down to the 20,000 foot view, the 500 millibar level, the vortex it's over here. And watch what continues to happen. Watch what the model continues to do. It continues to swing through lobes of the vortex. Here comes another one. It's another blast of the vortex at the end. Why is that? Why is that happening? Well, I want you to take a look at the Pacific here and the dynamic pressure in here in the tropospause. All right, this is again the troposphere. Look at this in the North Pacific, the continual bouts and blows of the higher pressure into the far left side of this. We're seeing that in the northern annular mode as well. The cold is troposphere driven. It's lower level driven. Okay, this is 500 to 700 millibars. This is the troposphere. This is what was responsible for early January. And here we are. Here's the forecast. We're getting right back into it here in late January. And so we're continuing to see maybe there can be drips from the stratosphere, but long story made short, our cold is coming from they're disconnected. They're not linked up. And so we're getting cold from a different level of the polar vortex, and it's very cold. And you can do that. You don't have to have the traditional stratospheric polar vortex or the sudden stratospheric warming event to get cold. And this type of stuff can outweigh signals such as the MJO. It can have it can outweigh it. We look at the years where the general shape and placement of the tropospheric polar vortex to the data is nearly identical. It's very fascinating. And again, a lot of that's due to the persistence in the Pacific blocking. The North Pacific blocking has been persistent. And that's giving you this constant tap. The TPV is over the Hudson Bay. A little bit of ridging starting to show up down here. That's the positive TNH in the pattern, the positive tropical northern hemispheric pattern that has resulted in this that we have talked about for quite some time. All right, but there's no surprise here that I think we're going to continue to run the gamut on winter. I don't think winter's done. In fact, we look at these years where we really favor these particular setups with the vortex and the orientation and how it's behaving in the TNH. These years here, they feature a ridge-like feature, warmth in the east and the southeast, okay, and a little bit less in terms of precipitation down here. All right, and unfortunately continue to favor dry in the southwest. But look at the forecast model, the European versus the analog. It's remarkable how much they match. I mean, look at this right here. This is precipitation. This is precipitation here. And you look at the overall forecast from the analog. You can see how cold it is. You can see the look here. Very similar in the European forecast with how these are going to pan out, right? So we look at those analogs in terms of snow, and who's in the running to get the biggest snows. The idea would be that we're going to continue to have a focused area, an active storm track right in through here, late January and continuing into February. That's the general idea right now. And you can see there's hints of it down south. There's hints of it. Another system or two. And I know everyone's wondering, okay, what's the MJO going to do? What's it going to do? I know, Michael, you see this. What about the MJO? I get it. We have the MJO. It's there. The models are, the EPS is a little bit weaker and goes into the circle towards the end of the run, where the American GFS doesn't necessarily do that. But when we're looking at this from a standpoint of if we go into 3 and we die into the circle, the January neutral ENSO, which, listen, the SOI is indicative of El Nino-like behavior right now. The AAM's going into La Nina-like behavior. The sea surface temperatures are not La Nina. There's a westerly wind burst in the Indian Ocean. This is not a La Nina or an El Nino right now. We need to look at this from a neutral perspective in terms of atmospheric forcing. So, in my opinion, the thing that has to be kept in mind here is the persistent signal of the North Pacific ridging. And if it's a little bit further east than versus this analog, well, then you shift this all east. That's for January. And then this is February. We're still noticing the persistence in the North Pacific ridging. You're going to have some ridging down here, some warmth in the southeast. Nonetheless, the low frequency kind of background state, the base state of the atmosphere continues to support North Pacific blocking, and the polar vortex in a favorable position to bring cold with it as storms swing through. You do not need a negative AO, a negative NAO, and high latitude blocking to get cold in these particular setups. It's very similar to 2014 in many regards, especially the vortex orientation of it. So you can get cold even though the MJO is going warm if the setup's right. Now, if the vortex was on the other side of the planet and we had no North Pacific blocking whatsoever, obviously the tune would be different here, but that's not the case. Okay, here's the European. It's the European day 10. In fact, I want to go real quick. I want to go to the northern hemisphere view here for you. Here's day 10 European. All right, you can see the big poleward extending ridge, very 2014-like. This ridge is very consistent. You get down to the day 13, it's still there in the Alaskan area, Alaska, and the tropospheric polar vortex. I don't know if you can see this or not. I want to make sure. It's right here. There's the TPV right here at 500 millibars. There it is. It's kind of stretched out, elongated here. All right. So, it's still there. Now, there's some gradient. There's going to be some warmth that works in here, but there's going to be plenty of cold. The storm track is going to be one that's like this, and it's going to pull down cold with it. So you're not done with the cold. Okay, maybe conus-wide cold, yes. This, because this look here has this, doesn't mean the cold goes away. And what I love about this is we don't live at 500 millibars, by the way. We live at the surface. And so when you look at this, even out to day 15, this is the surface at day 15. It's because we still have a tap to Arctic air, and storm systems pull it down. It keeps it colder. And that's what I believe continues. I believe we still have winter to contend with. If you look at the coldest Januaries in the last, since 1990, the top 5 coldest, I've had some people ask, why don't you look at all time? Because A, I can't plot data down in the early 1900s, and B, I don't even think it's relevant. The climate period's totally different, oceans and all the things. But look how similar the pattern is to the core of the coldest setup here with the analog, the average of the 5 years. Look how similar it is. I mean, it's almost identical. The only difference is you have a little bit more ridging down here. You could argue climate change for that. The setup is very eerily similar, okay, to the analogs. That analog package out into February looks like this. We continue to see the Alaskan Aleutian ridging, especially the negative WPO, which sets up an active storm pattern, trough digging in and bringing storms through here with a gradient. The CFS Weekly sees the same look as just the case for the coldest Januaries rolled into February. Point being, case in point is that statistically, these very cold Januaries correlate to cold Februaries. That's what these look like. I mean, it's very similar to the polar vortex ones I just showed you. So I highlighted it for you. Enhanced risk of below normal cold into February can be focused in the Midwest, northern plains. But look down there to the southeast. There's warmth there on the right. Okay, it's going to warm up in the east a little bit, but the pattern's going to remain active, and there's going to be a storm track in there that's going to continue to offer up a couple of big snow events, in my opinion. Okay, and that's the thought process right now. There's more to it than just the MJO or just the EPO or all this. There's more to this stuff than this one single variable. That's missed a lot. Or just looking at the day 15 ridge over Alaska has different placement on the models. Yeah, whatever. There's a whole other lens to look at this with. So this is the idea late January into February for snow. I don't see a reason right now to change this. This is probably where you're looking at some couple of snowstorm chances in here. All right. The official product for February, for the temperature forecast right now looks like this. We're forecasting, that's our weeks 3 and 4. You can find that too. We just talked about it. There's the February outlook, 800 HDDs. Last year we were 658, and the analogs are even colder. They're 805. We're 800 with a little bit of EC and warmer conditions in the east and southeast. And the storm track right now going right in through the Ohio Valley and the interior northeast, where I think there can be above normal snow, which we've kind of beat that into the ground as well. So that's my long range analysis for today. The cold isn't done. Winter isn't done. I don't think anything's going to be ending anytime soon. Share it with a friend. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. For those of you that stuck around, we can look real quick at the 12Z GFS and see if it's in all the way just for fun for any storm system activity. We like to model watch. Again, for those of you watching, you saw this earlier, that nice little coastal storm here. Nice trends there. And then in the extended forecast, we're looking for a bigger signal there, and there it is right there. Boom. Now we're jumping ahead because the model's still processing, but it's still there on the 23rd. There's a bigger storm there that we are going to have to keep an eye on. We'll keep you posted. Have a great day.